The subject today is freedom. Freedom is when a person is free in the fullest sense. They have opportunity, ability, and a desire to do what makes a person happy. Let's see freedom used or freedom practiced, I should say, in the story of Hagar and Sarah and in the story of their family. Most people probably know that Sarah was Abraham's wife and Hagar was a slave woman, and Sarah couldn't conceive. So Sarah elevated her status. She made Hagar a surrogate without any consent from Hagar herself. When we discuss the subject of Sarah and Hagar, it's obvious that Sarah is on the giving and Hagar is on the receiving end, which is very unfortunate. That being so called God's people, as they say that they are, that her behavior was so poor. And so many critiques when the story comes under discussion, they say that even Hebrews themselves, they say that it must have been a demand from Sarah, or a threat, or a persistent reminder that she was a slave and she had to do what her mistress was asking her to do. And Hagar must have been intimidated by Sarah and influenced. Anyway, Hagar gives birth to Ishmael. And Sarah began to deal harshly with Hagar, and Hagar fled to the desert to escape the resentment of her mistress. Abraham also denies Hagar the power to name Ishmael when the time came. Hagar is the first person to flee oppression. So let's just pause here for a minute and think about, did Sarah really use her freedom right? And Hebrews themselves say that she didn't. The woman Hagar had more morals. She upheld her integrity. She had a standard. She had principles. She was a conscientious woman. She had a rule of conduct, and she was a decent woman to go along with what her mistress demanded of her. And it's a hot subject because we live in the world of where people are very much into believing that education is important in your life, that intellect is important, that human rights act is how one should be respected, that respect should be given to life, and people should not be abused, or people should not be slaves anymore. There shouldn't be master and a slave status, that we are all life and we should be respected, and and we must keep our integrity. So there is a disturbing fact among the Jews where they have realized, reading the story, knowing the story of their ancestors and reading the story of Sarah and Hagar. They say that Sarah crushed Hagar's objective in her life. She crushed her dreams, and Hagar was indeed targeted. And Sarah abused the freedom that she had. Instead of dealing kindly and having compassion and having a caring attitude towards a maidservant, she was cruel to her. She bullied her and she targeted her. So Hagar's desires, ambition was crushed, destroyed by Sarah's attitude. And even Hagar's destination to make a status was crushed. And if we see this today, the story between Israel and Palestine, the conflict between the two countries, it's the same. Israel is bullying Palestine. Palestine isn't saying anything, isn't doing anything. Just people of Palestine are just living there. And instead of living in peace, instead of living in harmony, instead of having compassion, instead of having fear of God, so much fear that Jewish people have started to say that they preach, there isn't fear. There is actually, people are haughty, and people have years, decades, years, centuries have taught this fact. It's Sarah's attitude, Jacob's attitude, because Jacob also robbed his own brother, his older brother, his birthright. And he cheated, he lied to his father and his mother too, to her husband and to her son. So it's a family of cheats. The Jewish people have realized this that themselves. And because people around them who come as converts among them, they are also treated very badly. They are also treated to become their slaves. And the people who Noahites, who are just descendants of Noah, and they are also, the Jewish people are also training them, brainwashing them, training them to become their slave, saying, oh, we are holy people and you must serve us and you must speak for us, and must defend us, so we shall not get hurt. And this kind of behavior, when other Jewish people who have got conscience, who are conscientious, when they watch around what they've been doing to people, how they are fooling people to make them slaves, they have become disturbed, and they have started to talk to each other, and they have started to say this behavior of old is not a good behavior. It's gone on for centuries and it can't be lived in today's society, because people are also intelligent. They are not of slave mind, and so they question. And this is how the Jewish people have been. They have discovered their own mistakes, or other people have discovered their mistakes, and how they've been fooling people. So we, in today's day and age, we need to really keep our integrity. We need to keep our wits about, and we need to look out for personalities like Sarah. Sarah clearly was very hostile and Hagar was very hospitable. And so countries around Israel, Palestine, Syria, countries around Israel, people around living who live in Israel, and people those socialize, or many Jewish people don't allow socialization from other um, faiths or culture. But if you are, please be careful of these people because they are trying to make you believe that they are special people, but they are not. Their own people, Jewish people themselves, have started to say, the story of the Bible, the story of the Tanakh, is not really a story that is from God. It's a story of their ancestors who have written their journey, a journey, an experience of what they went through, and they've written it. And they were very cunning and conniving, very deceptive people. They wrote things in a way so people could be afraid of them. So they used the word God. They used the word God to manipulate people's mind, to say, oh, God says this, and we will do this. And people, because of God, there are a lot of people who love God. And we are all God's creation. And so they were scared of not doing anything wrong before God. And so this is how the Jewish people won many wars as well. They actually put fear in people to do what they wanted to do. And it all starts from their home. If you look at the life of Sarah and Abraham, what Sarah did to Hagar, if you look at the life of Jacob and Esau, and what Jacob did to Esau, how Rebecca how Rebecca told her son that to steal the blessing of his brother, how she prepared the meal, how she made clothes for Jacob to make her blind husband to make believe that it was Jacob, it was Esau. And so you can see how they fool people. They didn't even they didn't even have enough. Rebecca didn't even have enough respect for Isaac, and she disrespected her own husband, and she disrespected her son. She stole his blessing and gave it to help Jacob. She told Jacob to steal it. So you can see it's all about thieving, taking things. It's all about taking things. And if you see this in their book, it is actually a very strong narrative of the Jewish people stealing things. And they do this to this day. They go out in the world, they plan what they want. If they like something, they will take it. They have no compassion whatsoever. They are very greedy people. That's why people often think Jewish people are rich. Yes, because they only think about making money. And like I said, how Jewish people have told the story to us is that people who are rich, they will not be poverty stricken. The poverty stricken mind is so wrapped up with finding day's meal how to make enough income to pay bills, and how to keep a roof over their head, and how to actually have the daily needs that they need, that they don't have time for anything else. So, poverty actually is a sin, and wealth is a blessing. So, they have done, they have used every trick under the sun to gather wealth. So, if you look at this notion, you will see yourself how people have been fooling for centuries, and they always justify themselves, like if you say something to a Jewish person, and we see programs, debates, and when in the debates they always say, oh, it's anti-Semitic attitude. It's nothing anti-Semitic about it. If Hagar had pointed out to her mistress and said, excuse me, but you are being very cruel to me, she would have said, you're being anti Semitic. I think that's the um, prime example of giving how they use this anti Semitic term to hide behind their evil actions. So, anyway, let's press forward because I want to discuss further the the story between um, the story of Hagar and Sarah, and whether the freedom wasn't used in the right way. The freedom was abused. It was used in an abusive way, and so we know that when Sarah says she justifies it. She says Sarah it was so deceiving, and she justifies her behavior by saying her actions were for Hagar's own good. Her actions, what? When she threw Hagar out, it was for own good? How come? How can that be? Actually, in fact, she used Hagar, and when she abused her, when she was finished with her, she threw her out. So I would like people who are listening to discuss, to think and discuss if Sarah's act was decent or not. And many people, when we are in a group discussion, we talk about this a lot. And we say that even people around the world, they take care of their animals more better than how Sarah behaved with Hagar. And I personally would say, as many other people have said, that Sarah's action was adverse. She was so difficult and to live with. It was inappropriate behavior, and it's called actually use and abuse. What Sarah did to Hagar was very unpleasant. It was very nasty. It was very shocking. It must have been very shocking. It was. It sounds so disgusting, repulsive, and even evil, and what in the Bible called sin. And Sarah also committed sin before the Lord because of her distrust and disobedience to the Lord. And then she commits more sin by doing all those things to Hagar and to her husband, whom she did not ask. She didn't ask Hagar, she didn't get her consent, and she didn't get consent of Abraham either. She told him. So we see that Sarah was not fair, not honest, not kind. She wasn't respectful, she had no compassion. and she was ethically very wrong. Now, relating to the subject of ethics, ethics is related to standard of good and what actually Israel bangs on about that they are good people. But throughout the story is quite the opposite. Israel is behaving bad. They are not actually good. If you see Israel, how they are fighting with each other to this day, just how Jacob and Esau, how Jacob was fighting with Esau, and how Hagar was treated by Sarah, how Sarah disrespected her husband, and how Rebecca disrespected Isaac. And it is still going on throughout today that Israel is still behaving bad. But the message that they give to the world is that they are good people. When people among them are saying, we are not good, they even said, they have started to say, we are not holy. That we are not holy, stop telling us we are holy. And we are not holy. And so the conflict between them have arisen so high that they can see their flaws. So we see that according to ethics, the behavior of Sarah is a crooked one, it's a crime, and she's cheating her mistress. And to say that, well, Hagar must have expected honor and some kind of respect when this favor, the surrogate mother that she had asked her to become, Hagar must have thought that she was going to be respected, honored, but she cheated her. Sarah cheated her. And so ethically, Sarah failed ethically. And let's look at under the heading of morals. Morals are principles and beliefs concerning right and wrong. Was Sarah's behavior right or was it wrong? In our studies, Bible studies, in the Torah studies, people have concluded that Sarah's behavior was wrong, that she did not have a principle or rule of right of conduct. However, they also have concluded that Israel actually worshipped Sarah and Rebecca. And so this is the teaching that they teach. They sing songs and they say, may God bless our daughters to be like Sarah and Rebecca. Well, save this world if their women are like Sarah and Rebecca, because they are not moral women and they are not ethical. They are about a deception. They are about greed. They are about pinching people's rights. And you all innocent people out there in the world, you have to protect yourself. You have to wake up. You have to not acknowledge that they are God's people. Teach yourself that you yourself are God's people. You can see the God that in the creation. That's who truly God is. God is a God of creation. Do not follow Israel. Do not follow what they ask you to do, because they will put you into trouble, because they will take your rights and they will teach you a slave mind. So this video that I am making is very important, because this is what a lot of people have, including myself, a lot of people have concluded that the behavior, this is Jewish people, that the behavior of Jewish people has been so corrupt, and they can see the conflict that has arisen among them, they can see is really bad. They are so selfish people. And so we also need to see the analogy to the Israel and Palestine conflict. And we see clearly the two behaviors, the two personalities. Sarah's personality and Rebecca's Israel, and Palestinians Hagar. Now, it hasn't just come from anywhere. They have taught this behavior. The socialists, the psychologists watch behavior, and they see that behavior is taught. People often influence or demand or command behavior. And so, for years, because of lack of education, because people have been so struck by poverty, if we look at the life of many Palestinians, they are very poor people. There is nobody there to teach them anything, that to teach them humanity, to teach them to respect their life, to teach them that they are also God's people, to teach them what Israel is doing is very, very wrong, and they should not be killing their own brothers. So we need to discuss this subject, that the families of Muslim societies need to stop this nonsense of Israel that has been gone on for centuries. And people have to smarten up, and smarten up fast. They need to get rid of Israel's deceptive behavior and bully behavior, and the intimidation that they use the word of God. Ask yourself a question. Does God honor people who deceive? Does God honor people who steal things? Do you think God was happy when Rebecca was teaching Jacob to steal his own brothers, his older brothers' birthright? Do you think God was happy? What do we think about when we are studying morals and ethics today? We tell our children, if we are teachers, our students at school, that do not steal, do not disrespect your class fellow, respect your mother, respect your father, respect your family, respect your elders. Do not steal. Stealing is bad. But these people, Sarah, Rebecca, Jacob, and there are many more in their family history line, who have done this kind of thing, and it is not honorable. God isn't happy with them, because we know to this day, we are told that God is not happy with those people who are stealing and who are robbing people and who are causing conflict. The conflict that occurred between Jacob and Esau, Israel and Palestine, and the Muslim families are living and putting up with it, are suffering, experiencing that conflict to this day. So God can't be happy. God is not a God of conflict. God is God of peace. So when Jewish people are saying that we are not holy people, they are actually speaking the truth. They are screaming. They are actually saying, if you listen to them, they are actually screaming. If you say that they are holy, they say that we are not holy, they say. And they are speaking the truth because indeed they are not. So we need to, as people, we need to look after ourselves and not get trapped in the hands of these people. So to conclude, I would like to say one point. Social influence should be of confidence. And we see, let me give you an example of the Prime Minister Netanyahu Bibi. We need to see his influential behavior. How he reasons with other countries to be on their side. How he reasons with other PMs to agree with him that Israel is good and Muslim society is bad. And so it is a deceptive and fooling people behavior. How can we become foolproof? I think we need to have confidence in ourselves. We have to have respect. We need to basically do the opposite to what Sarah did to Hagar. We need to have compassion for us, kindness. We need to defend ourselves. We need to keep our rights. And we must not allow people like Sarah to disrespect our souls. Read up on human rights. We live in the 21st century. We are educated people. We are intelligent people. And please start defending yourself and living a good life. We are all God's children. And God is the creator God. You don't have to go to Israel or you don't have to go to Jewish synagogues to find God. God is the creator God. So take care of yourself. Thank you for listening.